And Happy New Year. I know you can hear me without the microphone, but we are recording this, so I'm going to use the mic right now. I'll try not to keep moving around. I'm just going to do a quick little introduction and hand it off to our engineer. This is our presentation of the plans for road construction for this coming year, so we can have you informed about what is being done, and you can provide some feedback before all the bids go out. It has been the borough's policy to approve the capital budget in the prior year, kind of give it a go-ahead so we can do the ordinances as we will in about an hour and a half or so. We'll be introducing the ordinances so we can get our bid packages out on the road, out on the street, so to speak, ahead of everyone else. And that usually helps us not only get good timing, but also good pricing. So with that, I will also note that there'll be some council members. We did advertise this meeting, but no action will be taken during this part of the meeting by the council, but it will be taken after 8 o'clock. We have Councilwoman Byrne and Councilman Hoover, and others may be coming in. And we have we start our executive session at 7, so you'll see us leave at some point. So with that, our Borough Engineer, Bob Vogel.
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming. Did everyone get the notice in the mail? Mailbox notices, yeah. That's how we got most of the information out to everyone. So I know it's a kind of a lousy night out, and thank you all for being intrepid and getting out here and trying to figure out what's going on your block this year. As a borough engineer, I've done these routinely, certainly probably more during Mayor Connolly's term than anyone else prior, but getting a little interaction with the residents about what's going on in their front yards obviously can be very helpful. So I think the intent of our meetings here today and similar meetings is to get your input as to whether you think these improvements are important, or whether there's minor clarifications, little ponding areas and things like that around your properties that we can maybe design into the project before it goes out to bid, so we don't have to make those decisions when the general contractor gets here during the summer. And again, as the mayor stated, what we wanted to do, what we have routinely done for the past several years, is try to have these meetings and the appropriations done in January, so that we can actually, since the local public contracts bidding process is fairly extended and cumbersome, it's about a 90-day process to award a contract. And there's a lot of plans and specifications that generally we accomplish in order to do that. Appropriating the money is our first step. And so the bid and award phase would take about 90 days, which gives us a construction window over the summer, which is kind of our intent. If we can get the planning out of the way at this point in time, then we can move on and get the construction work done during those 3 summer months. That's our target. So once again, thanks for coming. We have a lot of projects on, and I have to at least recognize a couple of council members that are here. I think Maureen Byrne is a council member who's been with us for several years, and new council member John Hoover, who's here as well. So it's good to see you both. Thanks so much. Yep. And Carmela Vital is our council liaison. And Carmela will be here, I'm sure, in an hour's time. So. Once again, big year for construction projects. This past year, we anticipate having another decent year this coming year. One of our bigger projects is Greenwood Avenue. Can I see a show of hands? Who's here from Greenwood Avenue? Okay. Greenwood Avenue we've been in the process of doing for several years. Since we're getting state aid, we have a $245,000 grant coming in from the state of New Jersey on Green Avenue. And that is obviously very helpful in getting the work done. It was about a $600,000 project that was designed and submitted to the state DOT last year, and it was going to go out for bid this spring and be constructed over the summer. So Greenwood Avenue section from Main Street to Fairview Avenue will be completed this summer, and it's a 2 or 3 year process in unfortunately getting there, but it's certainly nice to have the outside involvement in Greenwood Avenue, and anybody that drives down Greenwood Avenue here locally knows the paving conditions are far less than optimal. So there'll be some pavement work, some handicap ramps, sidewalk improvements, some curb replacement, but overall it's a resurfacing project that we're getting state funding for, so that's very helpful. The second project that we have to bid independently is Plain Street. And Plain Street, Frank Russo is here of our staff. And Frank is also a licensed professional engineer and took the initiative of going down to Morris County for housing and urban development in terms of a community development block grant for the water main replacement. And Frank was successful in getting $80,000 from the county on that score. Is there anyone here from Plain Street? Several. Okay. So Plain Street started off early on when we sent our original estimates down to the county to have our proposal on Plain Street was sidewalks on both sides, curbing on both sides, a new water main, some storm sewer improvements. And early on, I believe we got some reaction from the residents as to whether the sidewalks were absolutely necessary and the water line was absolutely necessary. And I think over the past couple of months, we've kind of revised our scope downward because the county didn't actually fund the sidewalks. They were funding the water main replacement, which is obviously a public improvement, very helpful, but they did not fund the sidewalks, and so deleting the sidewalks from the scope of work is not necessarily a problem for us. And our current bid package shows no new sidewalks on Plain Street. Now, that doesn't mean we can't modify that with your comments at this stage of the game tonight. Obviously, we can go through the plans, and Frank actually produced some small-scale plans here on Plain Street, which you can pick up and take home with you. Also, we have large-scale drawings up on the wall here, which you can look at in a little bit more detail if you need to. So, is there any questions about Plain Street as long as we're on the topic? Carmela Vital, thank you very much for coming. She's our council liaison. No questions about Plain Street?
Lifelong resident of Madison. And I have one question for you with the storm sewer. Are you going to replace the grates and the heads of the existing catch basins with that project? Or are you going to go to the new style catch basins that have they don't have heads on them that let the water run into them, you know what I mean? The reason why I'm asking that is about 5 years ago when you replaced all the water main and everything on South Street, reconstructed South Street, the town had a couple of nice catch basins with the open head. Because of the grade, every time it rains, the water just runs over the top of these new style grates. And then it comes down by Plain Street and it like ponds. Then when it raises up to a couple, 2 or 3 inches, it runs into the existing catch basins, which are the old style catch basins. And that was my concern about that too.
It's a good comment, John. I think Plain Street's always had kind of issues with flooding, particularly as you get down to North Street, because there was that old storm sewer culvert that was put in, 25 years ago at this stage of the game. So, the catch basin heads, the reason we replace those with the non-point source restrictive catch basin heads is due to state law. And the state DEP and the state DOT kind of work together to make the most restrictive catch basins because the surface grates themselves are bicycle compatible, which means small holes. And the back plates, which are the curb pieces, also they want to put small openings, a maximum of 2.5 inches in the back plates as a non-point source issue. And what that means is they don't want bottles and cans to make its way down to the major stream. And so we have routinely in our design, because we're required to, put those restrictive catch basins and back plates into the design. Now, if there are specific circumstances where flooding becomes a problem, we're allowed to, if we document it correctly with the state, keep those openings in the back curb piece at a large level. And it sounds to me like you're saying that's probably necessary in this particular circumstance. So we will do that. One of the other, I believe what we're also doing on Plain Street at the intersections is there are some old castings in the middle of the street which have either manhole covers or open grates on them, which I believe also need to be upgraded with a precast lid in order to make a nice square basin grate in the road. So there's a couple of things there at the intersections which you may want to come down and take a look at as well. And I can obviously meet you out there if it's a concern. But as far as maintaining larger openings in the backplate, I can't put that into the design plan, but if we document that there's a problem there, as you've stated, so I can sit down with you and actually document the issue. And the next rainfall, we can take a photograph of it, and I can send that document down to the state, then we can leave the larger grade openings at that location. Sorry it's so much work. It's a lot of paperwork for something that you'd think is common sense. But thanks, John.
Thank you.
Any other questions about Plain Street? No. Okay. So the third project that we have to bid, as far as road improvements are concerned, is the 2018 road program. And the 2018 road improvement program has four roads in it. Give me a second here. So the roads are Rosewood Drive, Crestwood Drive, Kensington Road, and the Central Avenue sidewalks. Is there anyone here from Rosewood or Crestwood? One. As far as Rosewood and Crestwood are concerned, the proposal at Rosewood and Crestwood is to essentially replace all the curbing that's there, improve the drainage catch basins, as we talked about, with the new state-compatible, DOT-compatible heads. We'll do some reconstruction in those catch basins because the first couple of feet of those catch basins generally degrades over time. And so we'll put new concrete block in there as well as put a new casting on top. So those types of improvements are going to be the norm at Rosewood and Crestwood. As you get up towards, the intersection at the very top of the hill is of Rosewood, right, is wide open and kind of uncontrolled. So I think part of our design plan is going to make a standard intersection out of something that currently has very, very large radiuses on it and doesn't encourage people to stop. So what we want to do at the Rosewood-Crestwood intersection is put a standard 15-foot curb radius at those streets where they come together so that, and put a stop sign in that people pay attention to. So there's less cut-through traffic, and it's less inviting for people not to stop. So at the Rosewood-Crestwood intersection, I think what you'll see is some revisions in the curb alignment, which actually will give people more property or more grass as far as that's concerned, but we'll close down the intersection just slightly so that there's less cut-through traffic at that location. So there will be new curbing at that location, slightly impinging into the road. The rest of Rosewood and Crestwood should be just replacement of the curb in place where it is, because a lot of the curb is completely degraded, doesn't have any concrete left between the curb block, and oftentimes it's buried underneath the asphalt, so you can't even see it anymore. So we'll be bringing brand new granite block curb with a 6-inch face uniformly through that whole subdivision. So, any questions about that? Are you? Do you live up at that intersection?
No, but I walk there often.
Sorry.
Cars just don't stop, and they just speed around
They
the...
scoot right on through.
Yep.
Yep.
I've been almost hit a couple times, so I'm glad something's going to get done.
We're doing something, and if there's some additional signage that you think might be helpful at that location, we can certainly talk about it further. But I think reducing the radiuses of that intersection will be a big help. Okay?
Thank you.
Sure. So the last road that we have on for improvements on the summer reconstruction program would be Central Avenue Sidewalks, which we have a plan to show sidewalks on one side of the road. This has been a multi-year subject with the residents as far as traffic calming is concerned. And the borough is fully supportive of some traffic calming measures along that route. The county is as well. We've had 2, I believe, informal hearings in the past 2 years with the county present that indicate their support of narrowing the vehicle lanes a certain degree and increasing signage and striping. We had talked about radar signals at one point, or radar signs at one point, which is a specific traffic calming measure, although we haven't been able to get a final resolution of whether those radar signs are going in or not. At this point, the general construction work on Central will be the sidewalk work only. And again, the idea is to put sidewalks on one side of the road between Fairview Avenue and Ridgedale Avenue so that the kids that are on their way to school don't have to go through the Fairwood development in order to get to the high school. Is there anyone here on Central Avenue that's, most of everyone's, that's right. The majority of people are here from Central Ave. So, thank you. Is there any specific questions about the sidewalk project that you would have at this point on Central?
So I'm Ray Lawletti, and I live on Central Avenue. I noticed that you took the sidewalk where it ends right now at Ridgedale on the west side of Central, right?
Up at Ridgedale, it's the west side, correct.
And you're using a crosswalk to come across Lorraine and then bring the sidewalk on the east side of Central, right?
Right.
Why?
The idea is to get the student people students that come up. It's easier for me to talk with a plan in front of me on that score. Give me 1 second. Actually, you know what? Frank's here. I think Frank had done some work on that as well. But at Lorraine, apparently there are a fair amount of students that come up the road, and they need to get to the high school, and they generally walk down the shoulder of Central Avenue, from what I'm told.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Big time.
And so,
I was wondering why you crossed Central and didn't continue the sidewalk.
on one side,
Yeah.
exclusively. I think it came down to obstructions in the existing, behind the curb for the existing route. And so we looked to have, since the section on the east side between Fairview and Lorraine doesn't really carry that many students, it seemed to be less well utilized, and therefore which side of the road really didn't seem to be that important to us at that point. Whereas the side of the road that the kids had to be on between Lorraine and Ridgedale was quite a bit more important because we didn't want them crossing at the county road. So we thought it was a much safer crossing at Lorraine Road than at Ridgedale Avenue, because they're already crossing Ridgedale Avenue essentially. So, I mean, keeping the sidewalks exclusively on the east side didn't make any sense at all. Keeping them exclusively on the west side was a bit of an issue with regards to obstructions behind the curb.
So you have the bike lane, and then the Belgian block, and then the county right. Where exactly is the sidewalk going to lay? Initially I thought it was going to go in the bike lane.
I think when we talked about narrowing the road, Ray, initially that was part of the discussion. Since we don't have money to narrow the road at this stage of the game, we talked with the county about narrowing the traffic lane and reducing the speed limit, both of which they're on board on. But we're not actually moving the curb for that entire distance. So that becomes a very big cost issue.
So you're going to put the sidewalk up in the right-of-way?
We're going to put the sidewalk behind the existing curb.
Yeah. So the bike lane stays?
Correct. Okay? Anybody else from Central Ave?
So now the students will have to cross,
Your voice does really well.
the students will have to cross Central Avenue at Lorraine. Is that what you're
They
proposing?
do that now, but it's fairly uncontrolled. And I think the intersection and the crosswalk will be made much better than what exists.
There's no crossing guard there. There's one at Ridgedale, though.
Yeah, well, I believe in our early discussions, an additional crossing guard was requested and dispatched. Yeah.
I should point out that it's not just students that walk that route. There are both residents and employees of the Cheshire Home that walk or traverse Central between Fairview and Ridgedale. So it's at all times of day.
So all types of uses of that shoulder are being utilized currently. And again, I think one of our primary objectives is to increase the safety for all users, not just the school children, but school children, people in wheelchairs, people that want to travel from point A to point B, or bicycles, pedestrians, handicapped accessible issues. All that should be improved as part of the project, and it's clearly our goal. But again, we initially said we could narrow the road structurally, and over time found that we couldn't do that without outside funding. And obviously, our funding proposal fell on its face as far as I was concerned, and we had to propose instead just striping a signage in order to better define that shoulder and that vehicle path. And again, the vehicle path right now is fairly wide and it encourages high speed. So if we narrow that down to 11 feet and do a much better job striping it and put chevrons and slow ahead on the pavement and things that create shoulder friction on both sides, I believe it'll be a benefit to everybody.
Does that mean Central is not going to be paved as part of it?
Oh, no, it's getting paved. Oh, yeah.
On the county's dime.
We're not letting them off the hook.
Also during summer?
Yeah, the plan with the county is to have it during the summer. That's quite.
That's correct. No, their county's not walking away.
I live on the lower section of Central, and I know you said Central's going to be paved, but would that section be getting paved also? Because it's kind of terrible in the last closest area to downtown.
Yeah, thank goodness, yes. The county intends to do the entire road. We'll just do a better job with the striping up at Fairview, because there they have the traffic calming issues.
They already lowered the speed limit.
They did.
35 and 30.
No, that was all part of the reason it was a several meeting process. And so the county's agreed to reduce the speed limit already. We've actually put additional signs up already, but it'll become much better when we go through, repave the whole thing, restripe the whole thing. It'll be much safer corridor than what it is today. Obviously there's a lot of utility work there today, and what I have to tell all the residents is it's often darkest before the light, so I know the road just looks like a mess right now, and it's going to get worse as the water line gets installed. But in 2018, it'll be brand new by the end of the summer. Long awaited, but welcome, I'm sure.
Sorry, I apologize. I missed the very beginning, but besides the paving on Greenwood, what else is happening? Was there something else?
With the Greenwood specifically, or all the projects?
No, just Greenwood Ave. That's the part I missed when I walked in. That's where I live. So,
Once again?
besides the paving, what else is happening on Greenwood Avenue?
Greenwood.
Yes.
Okay, so...
And I apologize for making you...
No
yourself.
trouble. No, it's so Greenwood Avenue starts at Main Street. We've applied for 2 series of funding rounds from the state of New Jersey. The first funding round we received for $245,000. So once we submit those plans to the state, they go under a state review and follow certain guidelines as well. So one of the state's biggest concerns is the handicap ramps. So we'll put new handicap ramps in most of the locations on Greenwood, even though they're really not bad the way they are. We'll have to replace any tripping hazards on any sidewalks that are degraded. So about 40% of the sidewalks on Greenwood Avenue will be replaced and repoured. Most of the curbing is in reasonable shape, so I think the curbing around the driveways and around the handicap ramps may get an upgrade, but most of the curbing is going to be able to stay as it currently exists. But again, repaving, new signage, new striping, better crosswalks, that's kind of the focus for all of Greenwood Avenue.
What kind of signage?
Okay? Pardon me?
What kind of signage?
Generally the speed signage is there. We're not proposing any radar signs, if that's the question.
Stop sign.
Definitely stop signs on the side streets. So one of the interesting things about Greenwood is the Britton Street intersection, if anybody's familiar with it, and it's got a long history of problems. And so initially we had proposed to do, we had talked about actually a fully signalized intersection years ago. And that didn't make it on the table, but we did put a brand new, we did cut down some trees at the intersection to improve sight distance. We did put a brand new flasher signal there, which obviously helps as far as limited visibility for people that are approaching the intersection. One of the things that remains to be a problem at that intersection is people, particularly during drop-off times, tend to park way too close to this intersection itself, and they should be back 50 to 100 feet. And so how we're going to do that this year is to in our state approved plan, is to texture the pavement and put very, very apparent shoulder signage there, which will be, not only will it be a different colored and a texture of pavement to make it look like a bump out, as if the curbing was actually coming out of the road, but there will be signage there for mid-block crosswalks as well, which illuminate and flash, particularly during school times. And so the idea, again, is to try to keep parents from parking too close to the intersection, try to keep sight distance at a high level, and make those intersections far more visible and apparent to any automotive traffic.
Yeah, the scariest, I'm sorry.
Do the crosswalk signs blink when someone's standing there, or just blink?
They certainly don't blink all day and all night, if that's the question. But there are actuators that, particularly during school times, any approaching car, I believe, would actuate this sign so that it would say, caution, students crossing the intersection at the crosswalk.
The scariest thing on that intersection is when the first car stops to turn left to the middle school, or coming towards Main Street, and then a car tries to go around them, and there's kids crossing in the crosswalk. I know you concerned about the parked cars, but those don't cause an accident as much as that. So I don't know if there's any way to narrow the street so you can't go around when someone's. I've seen it. I live right there, and I've seen it a handful of times.
Similarly to Central, we have discussed narrowing the road at those intersections, and it hasn't gotten universal support. And I think cycling is a big issue. So people want to keep a shoulder open so they can use their cycles.
Well, even just a cone in the morning, like they block off some streets you can't turn left on in the morning with school traffic. Even if there was a cone to narrow it,
that we could do tomorrow.
Just for turning in the morning. That's just one thing that's scary. The parked cars,
I
get hit.
always feel for the crossing guards at that intersection.
Yeah.
But very similar, we're going to do the same sort of treatment down at Fairview Avenue, where there's also students crossing the road at that location. It's a very wide paved intersection, so that needs to be improved as well.
There's a beautiful bump out in Ridgedale that does exactly that. At the high school, people used to go to Turner Central and they would go around as the students are coming to class.
Right.
That thing looks beautiful.
Oh, thank you. That was a local project.
It's a physical bump up that the cars can't physically go around. But I was going to say,
Well, one of the compelling issues on that bump out at Ridgedale was get the cars on the county road, which is Central. So if we bump out every road, cars are going to go right back where they used to go, which is down Central Avenue.
Going around the car, though. That was the danger.
Well, you don't want that every minute of every day.
Yeah, you don't want it at every intersection.
The crossing guards put a cone there. 2 extra cones to the crossing, and you can't go around.
It's pretty low cost, and that's the only thing that brings me on the running.
Good enough. Any other concerns about Central at this stage? This in the back. I'm sorry, just if you can speak into the mic.
Yeah, I was at one of the meetings previously, and I mentioned that Central Avenue was widened years ago because the curve, my house and my neighbors, we had a lot of accidents. So how can this be safe with so many cars now when there weren't so many cars years ago? If you're going to narrow the road.
I think what you're saying is are you saying that there's traffic there now that there didn't used to be?
Well, the clarification, Bob, is actually we're not narrowing the road, we're narrowing the striping, correct?
Correct.
So the curbs are staying where they are. So the width stays the way it is, but by striping that creates a visual traffic calming measure similar to what we did on Green Avenue where you see the double yellow and other places.
So the car lane's going to get narrower.
But the road itself
will
stays
not.
the same.
Okay? All right. Any other comments from anyone on any project that the borough's proposing? I can certainly go through the mill and overlay projects while we're waiting here, just so you know what's on our list. I think we made enough copies of the summary of today's informal hearing at the entrance here. If anybody would like to pick those up on the way out, it goes through all those for you. But we're going to have a reasonable mill and overlay program and a reasonable reconstruction program this year as we have in years prior, and we're hoping to hit a lot of the targets that we want to hit as far as the residents are concerned. I'm always here. I have business cards in my pocket, and if you have any concerns during the week, during the construction as we get started, you'll probably get another notice from the contractor in May before work starts. But anything between now and then in terms of planning you want to reach out and talk to either Frank or I about, you're more than welcome to do so. Anything else?
You'll be available to take questions on individual.
Oh, sure. After I sit down, and I probably should have 5 minutes ago, but feel free to go through any of these plans. Frank and I will stick around for an hour, and if you have any further questions, please feel free.
I just wanted to share what it's like to live on Greenwood Avenue these days. As bumpy as that road is, cars regularly go down there 35 to 40 miles per hour, which is over the speed limit of 25. If I go 25 on Greenwood, people like to pass me on the left or tailgate me the whole way down. I'm concerned once the road is repaved and smooth, they'll be more tempted to go faster. My children also have to cross Greenwood Avenue to go to school and visit their friends. And I have stopped at that Grove Street / Locust Avenue crosswalk only to have people come around me on the right. And one day someone will get hurt, I think, at that intersection. In June, someone was barreling down Greenwood, hit someone coming off of Grove, and ran over the crosswalk sign in the middle of the road. Never was replaced. I just wish that there were some more traffic calming or permanent speed reducing measures incorporated into your plan for Greenwood.
Okay, so as far as, just to follow up on, I think that intersection I did not concentrate on at Grove Street. And so that wasn't a specific target for me, but clearly Britton Street was and Fairview Avenue was. So if we have the ability to do more at Grove Street, I'll certainly be happy to go out there and see if there's something reasonable that we can do as far as chevrons. Please slow ahead, double widthing the crosswalks, signage. Reckless driving seems to be more of a problem today than I've ever seen. And I'm not sure I'm in control of that. I design the roads as best we possibly can to try to get people to drive responsibly. The enforcement of our traffic regulations is obviously another issue, and so that's something that we have to talk about separately.
But if you made it something more visible other than the striping on the ground.
Right.
That rubber sign in the middle of the street was helpful, but then someone ran it over and
Yeah,
that was the end of that.
it hasn't been maintained. That's part of the reason. Okay, got it. So we'll deal with that. Thank you for those comments. Okay. Anybody else? If not, have a nice night. And
I live on Kensington, or I'm going to be living on Kensington. And I see that, I don't know what is planned for that corner, because that is a busy corner with the children crossing and the cars.
Kensington and Kings.
Pardon?
Kings?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kensington Kings, right.
Okay, so the question was, is anything special being done at Kensington and Kings? So right now, there's a fairly broad crosswalk that's there. And students obviously are coming up and down Kings Road constantly and crossing that Kensington intersection. So we intend to fairly duplicate what's there with new signage. There'll obviously be new striping. I have most of the curbing being replaced in kind on Kensington, so we haven't done a whole lot in terms of bump outs and changes to the curb alignment that's there. Do you have a specific recommendation about what ought to be done? Because
Cars, the parents picking up the children, they park right up to the edge of Kings Road.
Okay. Well, that's something we can do something about.
It used to be a place for them not to pass, but they all park in front there all the time.
I'm glad you made that comment, because what we can do is obviously yellow stripe that shoulder 50 feet from the intersection so people encroach on the intersection and improve the sight distance. Completely understand. No, thanks so much for that comment. Okay, we'll be here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you all for coming. And as I said, Bob and Frank can answer any specific questions. And the council will be back in this room at 8 o'clock if you want to stay around.